Sometimes the stories that stay with us aren't the big dramatic ones. They're the quiet, everyday acts of resilience. And today I want to tell you about my Aunt Susie, who in her teenage years helped to keep my family going through some of the hardest times they ever faced.
I heard Jim Croce on the radio, a song about someone he used to know. The voice on the air, steady and true, and I thought of Aunt Susie. She ran the phones too.
Now, this all started with the very first song that I ever learned off the radio. I learned it right after my father first told me about Susie. I think I was about 12, and the song was Operator by Jim Croce. It's a story told through a phone call, and it made me think of Susie because she was actually a telephone operator back in 1918. I would lie there in my bed with the clock radio like right up against my ear because my parents didn't approve of what they thought was junky music. And I would imagine Aunt Susie connecting with people's phone calls and listening to the voices that she would never meet. But I think her real impact was in the lives of her own family that year.
Our own operator, steady and near, voice in the silence we all could hear. She bridged the miles, held the tides, keeping us close through her unseen lines.
In 1916, when Susie was just a teenager, she came back to her family after several years away at a girls' industrial school. My dad was 5 at that time, and he remembered Susie as someone who showed him love and affection that he didn't get from his parents. She taught him his alphabet. She would pull him into her lap, and if he got a letter wrong, she would thump him on the head. He didn't like that part so well. She was young, but she stepped directly into the role of caregiver. The family was barely getting by. Grandpa, well, I don't know, he was away a lot. I guess he was looking for work, but he would disappear for weeks or even months, and food was really scarce. There were times during the fall of 1918 when Susie's job as a telephone operator was the only income the family had. The Spanish flu was sweeping through town. Grandma spent countless hours taking care of sick neighbors. Grandpa was away. My Uncle Clarence lost his job for several weeks, and during that time, it was all up to Aunt Susie. Here's what my dad wrote about this experience. There was a time when there was no food in the house except a little white flour and a can or two of condensed milk. Mother boiled the flour and poured condensed milk over it. Soon the milk gave out, then all we had was white flour mush and cool spring water. Finally, even the flour gave out for 3 or 4 days. Mama and I had absolutely nothing to eat. He mentions that the older kids scrounged around at neighbor houses for food here and there. My dad was so hungry he ended up asking a neighbor girl if he could have a biscuit, and she ran to her mother who said yes. And that one biscuit meant so much to him. It was a small act of kindness, but he remembered it his entire life. He mentions he didn't kiss the neighbor girl in thanks, but I think he was tempted. Then, on November 11, 1918, the Armistice was signed, ending World War I. My Uncle Bob went out with the older kids to celebrate with everybody from the town. He says that whistles were blowing, horns were honking, people were cheering. They tied tin cans to streetcars, and then those tin cans clanked as the streetcars went down the road. The whole town just came alive, celebrating together. For a family that had been struggling for so long, it must have felt like a moment of real hope.
Soared through the day, connecting the lines. King home at night for some family time. Connecting strangers with every call. But for her
I wonder how
family,
Susie
she
felt
gave it
watching all of this. Did she realize how much she meant to the family? Did she know that she was their anchor? The one person who kept them going when they had nothing? In her short young life, she became the person my dad relied on most. In Jim Croce's song Operator, that I used to listen to lying on my bed with that clock radio up against my ear, there's a voice on the line helping people reach out across distance and loss. And I think my Aunt Susie was like that for our family back in 2018. She connected us all, quietly keeping things together, just as any good operator would do. Her voice, like Jim's, is still a part of our story.
operator, steady and near, a voice in the silence we all could hear. She bridged the miles, held the tides, keeping us close to her unseen lines. When I was young, that song played low, a voice on the air I didn't know. I thought of Susie, her gentle way, our own operator guides us each day. Our own operator, a quiet light, holding the line through the longest night. She bridged the miles, held the tides, keeping us close to her unseen lines. Cheers to the ones who keep us close, who hold things together when we need it most. Susie like Jim, her voice on the line, two operators connecting through time.